afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Holzer, a partner in Deloitte's M&A advisory practice. I lead our U.S. and global automotive M&A practice, and it's a huge pleasure to be here this afternoon and to talk with this great group of panelists about EV infrastructure. I think the discussion now is really a continuation of a lot of the topics that we've talked about already today, building out something that didn't exist 5 or 10 years ago. We talked about electrification, batteries, raw materials, new sources of supply chain, and I think EV infrastructure is another great example of a problem that we might not have known existed a decade ago. Tesla might have, but I think the rest of the industry didn't have this on its radar. So we've got a great panel bringing unique perspectives from different parts of the EV infrastructure value chain and from different geographic perspectives, which we found during our warm-up call are very, very unique and different. So why don't we start out with a quick introduction. So could each of you just introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your role in your company?
Sure. So I'm Nishant Arya. I'm the Vice Chairman and Managing Director of JBM Group. We are a global conglomerate present across different geographies and spread across electric vehicles, lithium batteries, charging infrastructure, power electronics, and renewable energy and few other areas as well. And definitely we see this as a huge opportunity in area of growth and having presence in about 37 countries. And we are seeing that the kind of zero emission technologies which we are developing, and there is a lot of opportunity for collaborating and co-creation with multiple companies, as we see here, with different startups and different corporates as well in different geographies, because multiple business models are emerging and we are trying to see how to give a holistic solution with total cost of ownership. And our idea is how technology can drive value that would simply define what we do.
Thank you. Doran?
Hello, my name is Doron Frenkel. I'm the CEO and founder of Drives. It's really a pleasure to be part of this amazing event. I founded the company about a decade ago, looking at the EV charging when it just started. And what we have developed is a software platform that serves as the operating system for EV charging operators. The system is end-to-end, but it's modular and flexible, so our customers can pick and choose how they use it. And we have robust APIs, so our customers are actually developing based on the platform. We have now customers in 30 countries. We are the largest in the Nordics, the largest in Japan, and in many countries it's on a country level. Our customers are companies like gas and oil companies like Shell, utilities, OEMs, big fleets, so the variety is kind of big. Even C-stores like Circle K and Apple Green and many more. As said, we are working in many countries. So in the US, we are working with EVgo, the largest fast charging network over there since 2016. We have millions of drivers on the platform already. We support over 700 different types of chargers. We have hundreds of millions of events every year. And we need to grow it to something like tens of teras of events within the next 2 years. So we see that the market is ramping up quite rapidly. And Mark, as you said, when we started, it was a big question mark. For us, not about if it will happen, but when it will happen. So the issue is how do you finance it to make sure that you have the best solution in the world when markets are ramping up. And luckily, we succeed to do so. We have been acquired about a year ago by an American corporate, but we stay as a standalone company and we expand our business.
Thank you. Matthew?
Yes, Matthew Soulas. I have an engineering background, and I've been working for more than 25 years for Total Energies, one of the major energy company. We are fully engaged in the energy transition. We were mostly based on oil and gas activity. We are now developing gas on its use when it decreases the carbon emissions, so replacing coal for power generation, for example, or managing the renewable intermittency. When there is no sun and wind, we still need gas to make power. But today, I will speak mostly on the what we call the downstream. So we are building a third pillar for the company, which is based on electricity, so from production to the final use of it. And we are already quite a significant actor, mostly in Europe, on electric mobility. So at the end of 2022, we were operating more than 40,000 charge points, half of them being public charging. And we are growing on all the different segments. We are, in fact, building with a backbone of a network of service stations. We have more than 15,000 service stations worldwide, and we are helping our customers to transition from fossil fuel, including biofuel, but towards the zero carbon fuel, which is the energy, green energy at least, the green electricity.
No, thank you all. Let's start out with a high-level topic. I'll bring a U.S. perspective, since that's what I'm most familiar with. There's a wide range of approaches. Let's start with the OEM that are being taken in the U.S. Tesla obviously built out their own charge network. They had to. They were effectively the only EV producer, and no one was going to do it for them. But now as more OEMs ramp up more EVs, there's a question about infrastructure. Some OEMs are building out their own network. Some have partnerships. And then you're seeing a number of ancillary entities that are interested in EV infrastructure. Hotels, shopping malls, restaurants. Starbucks is partnering with Volvo for their network. If you think about this from a high-level perspective, who do you think has a right to win or a natural ownership of at least a large part of the EV infrastructure in terms of installing, operating, maintaining, et cetera? Or is it no one? So maybe Nishan, I'll start with you.
No, so I personally feel that the EV ecosystem has to work together. And when we talk about the EV ecosystem, whether I look from downstream or upstream perspective, whether it's the discoms, the IPPs, the independent power producers, or we look at the whole transmission distribution, in certain cases where we are also trying to understand how vehicle to grid and grid to vehicle, both kind of plays can be brought in with bidirectional power play, and simultaneously seeing that in terms of the chargers which are there, how you are able to build in a very high level of interoperability, and we are able to avoid the technology redundancy over a period of time, which enhances and ensures a very high level of asset utilization. At the same time, you're putting up such a large charging network, you would want to see that you are able to manage the charging network as well. So almost 95% plus issues can be addressed through remote diagnostics. Only 5% issues would need human intervention at all times, where you can build in such kind of softwares where you are building in payment gateways and other things, which is quite normal today. But otherwise, with such a high level of digitization, you can also monitor the kind of performance which is there with such kind of chargers. And charger is not only the only part here. I would say in the ecosystem, the charging infra is a very important piece, but the chargers can only perform if the batteries are able to have that kind of high charging rate. If I look at fast chargers, whether it is 1C or going up to 5C. And that is where the battery charger and the vehicle interface becomes very important. So the charging management system, the battery management system, and the vehicle management system, how all three need to perform simultaneously for it to work. Because if you have only a great charging infra and your vehicle and battery are not in line with that, then it would not work. At the same time, it is difficult to standardize the same. People are following different protocols like CCS2, CHAdeMO, and many more in different cases. But there is no one standard formula today. For us to get there, it is essential that the whole ecosystem perspective is taken, and then you are deploying those vehicles to get the right level of efficiency and higher level of asset utilization, and also ensuring that the operating mechanism any end consumer is having vis-a-vis the fossil fuels is not getting disturbed. And if you're using fast charging there, then in that case that gets further optimized in terms of the whole experience a customer is getting. Because eventually I feel the purpose for each stakeholder within EV ecosystem is with respect to the experience of the end customer.
So Nishan, you're describing a world where software rules?
Yeah, I think software rules and software and hardware both rule, and with the firmware. Like in last 3 years, just to give you an idea, we have come out with almost 73 different iOS updates with the different softwares we have, whether for charger or battery or the vehicle, and consistently upgrading it so that the experience of the customer gets enhanced. So customer rules, and for customer to rule, we have to ensure we give them the best service, and where software, hardware, and firmware all go hand in hand.
Doran, do you agree with that?
First of all, I like what you said because I do believe that software is essential for all of that, so thank you for that. If you look at the question about who is going to win, what we are looking at is different countries. So we are now active in 30 countries, and we are following utilization. So the Nordics is with the highest utilization, then the Netherlands and the UK, and then others are following. And if you look at the different players there, everyone is playing. So we see that gas stations are getting into that. Oh, by the way, it's important to understand that most of the charging is being done either at home or walk. It's about 80 to 90% of the cases. And then the rest is public charging. So we see that if you look at where is the future gas stations, it's probably the real estate owners. And if you look at the different players today, we see that gas and oil companies are getting in. C-stores are getting in. So for instance, Circle K, which are one of our customers, are not providing solutions, EV charging solutions only on the C-store, but also at home and fleets. Okay, you see that with other customers. We have another customer called MOL, which is the largest gas and oil company in Central and Eastern Europe. We're working with them in about 7 countries. They are also looking at public charging, but also fleets. So we see gas and oil companies getting in, utilities are getting in. The utilities in the US, it's a bit different story. And you see that fleets are getting in, real estates are getting in. So we need to provide services to all of the above. But what we need to remember is there is an end game, and the end game is about energy management. The business models are going to evolve. So I agree that all of those things need to be managed charges, and eventually it will be linked to the utilities, to the generation, to all the power things, and that will be also a source of revenue. And so if you look at the different players, OEMs, automotive manufacturers are getting into the EV charging. Tesla started, but you see other ones like VW are getting in and others. Mm-hmm. If you look at gas and oil companies, they are in. So everyone is trying to see what is their role in this business. The way that we are looking at the future is we are following utilization. The places with more utilization, it's most likely will be closer to the end game, because the main challenge now from profitability perspective is utilization. In most countries, the utilization doesn't reach the level that it's profitable. It's still investment. It's getting there closely. It's getting there kind of rapidly, but we see that in some countries like the Nordics.
Matthew, you want to share a gas and oil perspective on the topic?
Sure, but just to the same answer, there is no right to win. It's a new business. We have to reinvent many things, new infrastructure, new behaviors of a customer. And it's very important to be able to address use cases. And as you just said, we had very different use cases. You have a public charging or charging on the go. And on each, and you have also private charging at work and then at home. And at home is very different. If you have a private house or if you are living in a condo, the solution will be different. So very important that, of course, oil service station companies like we were have some advantage because they have access to the land for on-the-go charging. They have access also to the right spot. Because there is no way of installing infrastructure where the customers don't want to go. And usually when you're on the highway, you don't want to exit the highway, drive 10 kilometers to find a charge point. So you must be on the right place where the people are needing the energy and willing to take it. So, for example, on the go, we have studied carefully the subject, and we are building on the asset that we had already, converting them, because people are very happy to stop, feed their car. Electricity takes slightly more time than diesel and gasoline. So, luckily enough, we have services around the energy points, so we can sell coffee, good food, and some rest. But when addressing, if you want to have a global offer to the customer, and I think the ones who will succeed are the ones who will be able to address the full customer journey. So we are also addressing cities, and so we are running now, operating the charge points in Amsterdam, London, Rotterdam, recently Singapore. And the idea is also to be able to have because cities is very different. You have public, private parkings. You have to be there where the people are coming, either to shop or to live and spend the night. So, and when you're switching to the fixed installation at home or at work, of course, utilities are already there because they're already selling the energy to the building. So it's important, it was important for us to also be this utility part of addressing the final customer where they live or where they work. So it's, the challenge is indeed to have a comprehensive network, being able to choose and being able to address different use cases. And that's what we are trying to build, comprehensive network on the different steps of the customer journey for EV charging.
So let's pick up on a point you made, Doran, around profits. It's 2023, that's back in fashion. Cash is king again. If you look at EV infrastructure today, at least through the lens of public companies that participate in the space, you'd reach the conclusion that the profit pools are nowhere, at least right now. So if you forecast out 5 years, 10 years, recognizing, to your point, Matthew, that perhaps no one has a natural monopoly or a natural right to win, where would you think the most attractive profit pools would sit across the value chain? Maybe you can start out, Doran.
Yeah, so first of all, when we started to work in the Nordics, we thought that we have a bug in the software because utilization was so high, and we said, oh, no way they're there. So it's about where do you have the utilization and where you've put the stations. So in some places you have already the right utilizations, but in other places it will take time until you will have the right utilization. And that's the challenge. Now, if you're looking at the different parts, like hardware has its own margins, and when it's commoditized, it's becoming kind of harder. Operators eventually will probably be the most profitable one, but it's the highest amount of investment. Now, the incentive plans assist a lot, like in the US. So it's a game changer in the case of the US. So it's about who is doing the investment, what is the return on investment, and what is the time frame. That's the question. It's not one parameter. It's about how do you make money out of it. But there are many players that are going to make money out of it. Like if you are a restaurant and you have the location, you can get still revenue from charging by enabling the operator to put the charger in. And if you are an operator and you aggregate the power, you can make money from the utilities for the flexibility market, so you get into additional revenue stream. So all of that is still evolving. And as said, the places that we are looking at are the most utilized ones. That's where you can follow the money and you can understand the business models.
Matthew?
Yeah, indeed, the business models are still very evolutive. And the margin, and because today most of the customers are early adopters. And when we see the market changing at scale, the patterns will be different. What is very important to us, and it's why we decided to be fully integrated on the value chain, from production of the electrons towards the final customer, is to be able to bring the value to the customer, where it needs, when it needs. And it goes with having the good infrastructure, but a charge point from far seems simple, just a pot along the street. What is important for a customer is that this charge point is reliable, which is already a big challenge, because we see that some of our competitors cannot reach the reliability. You need to maintain it regularly. You need to have a good supplier, to have been able to test the device before installing it. So you starting from the infrastructure, and then you have to bring also the reliability. So this it must be reliable, but you need to also have a supply, an electric supply, which is reliable. And of course, it also must be affordable, because when we've seen last year the price of electricity skyrocketing, if you're not based on a good electricity supplier, then you are facing that and you are pushing those crazy prices to your customer. And you will first have the reject of the customer and then lose the value. So for us, it was very important last year, for example, to be an energy and a power producer, to have long-term contracts and being able to stabilize the price to the final customer. And it's all those different points that you have to address to make sure that the customer's journey is smooth enough, reliable enough, and affordable enough so that you can keep them and attract them and sell you electrons in your charge points and on a good location. But we've spoken about the location before.
Nishant, anything to add on that?
Yeah, no, I think what is most important is that today there's bigger cities where you have higher density of electric vehicles and specifically fleet applications. So in fleet applications, the asset utilization of the vehicles, the asset utilizations of charging infrastructure is much higher, and they have a fixed route in majority of the cases, so it's more definitive in nature, and you can plan the infrastructure accordingly. And that is what would lead to very high levels of profitability, and that is what has led to parity in many cases already in certain countries. The other point which I would like to bring in here, which is equally essential, is, as Matthew mentioned about power, so the renewable energy part of it, I think integrating the whole piece with renewable energy footprint is going to be very, very important. Otherwise, we'll be just pushing out the fossil fuel-based power plants out somewhere else. Like in India, I think they've done a very interesting piece that by the end of 2030, we would have about 500 gigawatt of renewable energy and more than 30% of electric vehicles across the board. So if you are having an integrated plan of power and the power applications like electric vehicles, along with the right level of asset utilization, and that is what is getting monetized well by different parts of the EV ecosystem, whether it's a charging infra player, whether it's a logistics company, or whether it's the end user, or even companies and e-commerce companies like Amazons and others of the world who would be able to benefit from this, because eventually it is also becoming an integral part of ESG for many of the corporates and how they are consuming and producing green footprints across the world.
So our 25 minutes is going by quickly. So I'll move to our last enlightening round question. Deloitte conducted a global automotive consumer survey. We published it back in January, and it indicated that EV infrastructure was one of the key concerns around the purchase of an electric vehicle by consumers around the world. And Doran, you had a phrase that I liked. We've moved from range anxiety to charge anxiety. So I'll be using that again. So just quickly, from each of your perspectives, what are the one or two things that you think can be done to help accelerate EV infrastructure and help consumers purchase an EV without charge anxiety in the future? So maybe, Matthew, I'll start with you down at the end.
The first point is the network, so the geographical coverage of the charge points. And it is very important, and it is a challenge, because indeed, as we mentioned, city centers are the easy part, because that's where the EV will stay for most of the year, in fact. What is more challenging is the long distance, for example, because you need to have infrastructure in number before the cars are coming. So it's quite a challenging chicken and egg question, because you need to put the infrastructure with, and it's very costly, because on the go, on highways, it's high power charge, so it's a significant capex. So it's why it's developing in regions which are supporting it. And China, now India, Europe, the US have put in place regulation which are a combination of obligation and subsidies. And we've seen that in Western Europe, very important to equip the highways, so to help the range anxiety reduce, is to have some obligation to equip all the highways main points, service station, for example, but also to have a form of subsidies to make sure that the investment will take place before the cars are coming. And when you are the investors, it's very important, because we are building those HPC hubs for 10, 15 years, and we know that the 3, 4, 5, 7 years, there will be almost no one, at least on very few numbers of days during the year. So it's very important that we got this long-term view on making sure that we will operate those hubs for a long time, and also part of the subsidies to make sure that the investment will not be too difficult to bear for the first 7 years.
Doran, do you have an answer in 10 seconds?
Sure. So first of all is making sure that the chargers are up and running, because there are many issues around that. So self-healing and fixing the issues on the chargers. Second thing is energy management, to make sure that you have enough energy around it. Then beyond that, it's about roaming, enabling the customers to charge easy, to find the right partner or customer or network. And on top of that is to think about the drivers, the driver journey. Whenever you are, whoever you are, as a player in this field, to make sure that the drivers has an easy and safe journey. And on top of all of that, we need to remember that we have a base for change now. If we look at EVs as battery on wheels, and we'll use them as a way to assist the network as opposed to a burden on the network, we can make a big difference. And it's on us to make this change. So I know that all of us are trying to go this path. We think that we've moved a long way, and we are getting there.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you all.